Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So first things first, I'm now writing MBTI blogs on WordPress and you can check them out in the description link below. And also definitely check out my personality themed merch store, which is designed for you to showcase your personality with pride. Okay, so today I'm gonna kind of venture into a category or I guess a personality test that I have previously not touched on, and that is the Enneagram test. So this is actually in conjunction with my understanding of MBTI. I don't think that they necessarily contradict each other. I think that they can work hand in hand in helping us to understand ourselves better. So I actually see a lot of validity in Enneagram as well. So my understanding of Enneagram is actually that it helps you to understand what kind of um, person you are beyond your MBTI type. So for example, I am an INFJ and I know a lot of INFJs. And yes, we do have a lot of similarities in terms of how we process thoughts, emotions, and even down to the kind of people we are attracted to and our communication style. Like definitely it has to do with our cognitive functions being the same. However, even among the INFJ community, I feel like there's a lot of different priorities and we can use the same functions in the same order in different ways. So how I see Enneagram is kind of how it shows like there are different flavors of the same type. So for example, an INFJ can be more of type 4, which is part of my Enneagram. Type 4 is known as the individualist or the romantic, and typically type 4s are more creative. They are more like immersed in the kind of literary or musical or it could be poetic endeavors. Whereas, if someone is like a type 2 or type 9, then type 9s are more like, I think, compassionate and helpful to people. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not as familiar with Enneagram as I am with MBTI. But I'm definitely very familiar with my own Enneagram types. So, INFJs with different types, they have different emphasis. So, for example, an Enneagram 4 type of INFJ would be more inclined to be a writer or a musician, whereas, someone who is type 9, who is like more inclined to help others, would be maybe a coach. I don't know, maybe like an INFJ life coach or a psychologist or someone who likes to give advice, so counselor maybe. I mean, these are just obviously not saying that you cannot be a writer if you are a certain type, or you cannot be a counselor if you are a certain type, but it's just like generally speaking, we do tend to be a little more inclined in certain areas or certain pursuits based on our Enneagram type, even though, I'm also interested in like psychology and so on, obviously, because I'm doing a video on that. But generally, yes, as a type 4, I am very interested in writing, like creative things. So to break it down, I'm a type 5 with 4. And so what it means to be a type 5 with 4 or type 5 wing 4 is that the first number is like your, I guess, dominant type, like the type that you are most like strong in, like the traits fit you the most. And then the second type, which is the wing 4 for me, so it is the second most dominant. So people can have like, type 8 wing 9 wing 1, that kind of thing, but most of the time we just look at the two most dominant types, because as the other types continue on, it's just weaker and weaker traits. So it is a lot easier for people to understand you if you tell them like, the results based on the two most dominant types. So for me, it's 5 wing 4. If you want more information on it, I suggest you take the test, and the Enneagram test is freely available online, and it's very popular, especially when it comes to like career paths. Yes, definitely the Enneagram type can impact our career choices. I think even a lot more than MBTI. That is my own opinion, and so you can check it down in the link below as well. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about my own experiences as INFJ 5 with 4. So typically, this Enneagram type is pretty rare. So even among INFJs, sometimes I feel like I don't really have full understanding, because I'm a type 5, and type 5s are known as the thinker or the investigator. We are very interested in like intellectual pursuits, just to put it generally. So we are very questioning. So I mean, this also sounds like a TI trait if you have watched my video on introverted thinking. So definitely, yes, I'm using TI very strongly as a type 5. So type 5s are very, very interested in understanding the world and in possessing knowledge. And this is not to say like other types don't have that curiosity, but type 5s have it in a way deeper, I guess. Like they are more focused on it. It's like basically they are interested in it on kind of a daily basis. So it's not like, oh, just a casual interest. So for me as a type 5, for example, I'm a lot more aware, I would say, of like topics like the media manipulation and very stereotypical type 5 topics. And how mob mentality manifests, how different perspectives can actually add value to the world. Like I'm very aware and I'm very interested in those topics, and this may not be topics that other INFJs without type 5 are that interested in. Not to say that they are not, but typically I would say that type 5s are more interested in those areas. And also type 5s are very like interested in knowledge, and the knowledge is very diverse. So for example, when it comes to politics, I think I'm one of the rare people I know that really read sources that are or very different views. So typically I don't limit myself to like one political opinion or one type of news outlets. I actually like to explore and to really hear what different news outlets have to say, especially the ones with conflicting points of view, because to me as a type 5, I want to investigate, right? And I feel like it's like that old saying, I think it's along the lines of entertaining our thoughts without accepting it. So for me, it's like if I were to better understand myself and others, then I have to listen to conflicting views. Like it's only when I fully explore these views, then I can form an opinion. Because if I don't listen to both sides, if I only listen to one side my whole life, then how do I know that I'm really believing this, right? Because I've never heard what the other sides have to say. And, I don't rely on like news stereotypes. I have to really understand it from different perspectives. Like I listen to, what each side has to say, like firsthand, before I form an opinion. And this is true for like any kind of issues, really. So, even though, for example, I'm pro-choice, I do listen to pro-life arguments. And because of this tendency, I actually get along really well with NT types. even though I am INFJ and I use extroverted feeling a lot more than them. But definitely I think that they are able to understand where I'm coming from. You know, they're not like prone to misunderstanding, this tendency for me to want to seek out the truth by looking at different angles. And this is also true for me when it comes to like international politics. So it doesn't have to be American politics. It can also be like, you know, politics related to the Middle East, or, you know, related to like China and the US. I don't just look at one argument. I don't look at just, you know, China bashing websites alone, and I'm not going to look at like US bashing websites alone. I look at both sides of the argument, and I kind of decide, you know, based on my own logic and my own understanding and also my own intuition, which side I would be more inclined to believe. And this is actually, I feel like type 5s are so easily misunderstood in this world because of how, you know, polarized the world is. Typically people tend to want to be categorized completely in one box, and this is actually very difficult for someone like me to explain to others, because I definitely do not see myself as completely on one side or the other. I always have my own opinions based on, you know, my own understandings. And because I like to investigate the truth, I also tend to update myself. So people can be very confused. Like 1 month ago, I might have a certain opinion, and then next month, it's like a different opinion based on new evidence that I've seen. And I don't easily believe what the news tells me unless it is very well researched and corroborated. And I rely a lot on my own research, and also by talking to people with different views. I think that's like the most useful way to understand, is to really talk to people with different views. And so I think for me, as a type 5, it's actually really pretty difficult to be understood by society that insists that you have to be in a certain box. Like I see myself as, you know, not really anywhere. I'm not like fixed on my political party affiliation, if that makes sense. Like in any country, in any type of situation, it always depends. Like it depends on what is actually going on. And I definitely can withdraw my support whenever I deem fit. You know, if someone does something wrong, I'm not going to worship that person, even if I supported him or her in the past. Like I don't really worship politicians. Like I don't care who that person is. I just don't worship anyone. And definitely as an Enneagram 5, it's also difficult at work sometimes, because Enneagram 5s tend to be very independent thinkers, and that can be frustrating for some types of bosses, I think, and also like for more like bureaucratic companies where it's like people who have a higher position from you have the final say. So that can really be very frustrating, because as a type 5, I don't really want to follow instructions blindly. So I would sometimes ask questions, or I may even like tell them that I have a different opinion. And sometimes some people don't like that. They feel like, oh, why are you questioning my authority, you know? So one case was I was working for this company, and basically they wanted to have a list of what is the approved news organizations and what is the non-approved news organizations. So they are like, oh, this type of news outlet is unreliable, and this type of news outlets are reliable. And so for some reason, they deemed Hypebeast as an unreliable news outlet, and they deemed like BuzzFeed as a reliable news outlet. And I'm just like, I don't get it, you know, because BuzzFeed is not a reliable news outlet. I'm not sure if you know this, but BuzzFeed has been publishing a lot of clickbait articles and a lot of like misinformation. And even though it's well known, I don't think most people would consider it a reliable news outlet. I understand that they say Hypebeast is not a reliable news outlet, but for them to say like Hypebeast is not reliable, but BuzzFeed is somehow reliable, it just doesn't make sense to me, because like why don't you just say both are not reliable, you know? But unfortunately, I was just someone who started working there, so I don't really have a say in what they decide to be the reliable news outlet and what isn't. And frankly, both have been caught like reporting false news before. And so they always say like, oh, this is what the boss says, or this is what we have already decided. So you just have to accept it. But for a type 5, that can be very frustrating because we are not really allowed to form an opinion around it, or we are not allowed to voice our opinion about it. On the Enneagram 4 side, Enneagram 4 is known to be very artistic and almost like a typical writer, artist, poet type of Enneagram type. And because of this Enneagram type, I'm definitely very, very interested in like literary pursuits. So I just love reading novels from a young age, and I have very, very deep connections to music that has a very type 4 vibe. So, I mean, some people can call it sad music, but I think for me it's more about the lyrics. Like, it doesn't really need to be super sad or anything, but it's more about the poetic, nature of the lyrics that I really, really am drawn to. And typically type 4s may have a bit of different music taste as compared to maybe other types, because we really do care about lyrics. But at the same time, yes, I also listen to just catchy songs for fun. But I think the kind of music that makes type 4 most I guess in love with are older music. Not necessarily has to be like that old, but typically for me, from a young age I actually appreciated music in like the 80s and 60s even, simply because their lyrics are just more poetic than the more, I guess, well-known singers of today. I mean, this is just something that I observed, and it's not like I'm intentionally not listening to any pop music, because I do listen to pop music, but my favorite songs tend to be songs with very like introspective musings about life type of feeling. And as a type 4, I also have very intense emotions, and that can again cause me to be mistyped, because people sometimes rely on stereotypes. They think, oh, you must be an INFP if you have such a strong connection with your feelings. But not really, because I don't use FI. I mean, I have friends who use FI, but I do not use it, and I definitely use FE. I'm very aware of other people's feelings, and I try to cater to them, and so on. But definitely, type 4s tend to be very individualistic as well. So we are very aware of the ways that we are different from others, and we tend to want to preserve that, to hold it very strongly. So again, causing people to mistype us as INFPs. But no, not all type 4s are INFPs. There are a lot of different type 4s. So you can even be an INTJ and type 4. Or you can be an INTP and type 4. So there are actually a lot of famous musicians, people in the entertainment industry, like actors, who are type 4s. Some famous ones are like Johnny Depp, all those like literary giants like J.D. Salinger, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So yeah, type 4 is more of a talented in the creative area, and the flip side is that type 4s definitely may get depressed. But for me, thankfully, I think my type 5 actually helps to ground my personality. I don't know. I feel like because of my type 5 being more dominant, um, I'm actually not so prone to like wallowing in my own emotions as much. Um, because I do have like this stronger, um, I would say like rational side grounding me to reality. So I'm very thankful that I'm a type 5, even though I definitely love the type 4 part of me as well. So I hope that you have a better understanding of people who are of this Enneagram type. Even though we are rare, there are actually a lot of, you know, creatives out there and also writers out there with this personality. And um, even though, you know, we may not be as, I guess, like out there, you know, in society, because fives and fours tend to be a little bit more private. But it's good to get people to really understand what is our core, you know, set of beliefs and what we value, so as to eliminate misunderstandings. Okay, so don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.